The following program is a presentation of WHRW's Public Affairs Department. The views expressed are those of the show's host and various guests and may not reflect the views of WHRW's management or of other WHRW station members. This program may contain frank language and/or material. Therefore, we advise you to carefully consider whether you or your children should listen.
But I'll help you. Welcome to the Weekday Wellness Update on WHRW. I'm Emma Hunter, your host and health educator for the Department of Health Promotion and Prevention Services here at Binghamton University. So starting on Sunday, February 26th and going until Saturday, March 4th, it's the National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. It's headed up by the National Eating Disorders Association, and it's a chance to shine the spotlight on eating disorders and how to help those dealing with one. This year's theme is It's Time to Talk About It, where everyone is encouraged to get screened for an eating disorder. Let's bust those eating disorder myths, shatter the stigma, and help those who need help get it. And I am proud to be a Binghamton Bearcat because not only do we offer counseling around the subject, but we have an entire committee devoted to providing education, outreach, and resources to both the campus and the community as it relates to body image, eating disorders, nutrition, and fitness. It's called the Eating Awareness Committee, and today I have the honor of speaking with the chair of this committee, Ms. Sarah Thompson. So welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thank you very much, Emma. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Great. So can you tell me a little bit about your title and explain your role here on campus?
Yeah, I am actually a lecturer in health and wellness studies, and I also am involved in many committees on campus, including chairing the Eating Awareness Committee. So I teach a variety of different health and wellness classes, but also help with the programming for health on campus.
And we're going to be talking about it in a little bit, but you're here to talk about a screening of a documentary called Embrace, which surrounds eating disorders. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And when is that going to be?
We're actually screening the film, the documentary Embrace, on Monday, the 27th of February at 7 p.m. in the Old Union Hall. And it's a documentary on body image, and the concept of body image is somewhat ambiguous. I mean, we all have a body image, but we really want to embrace our bodies and the uniqueness in everybody's body. We all have things about our bodies that we love. We all have things about our body that we maybe would like to change, but there is beauty in every body. So that's really what the film is about, and it's really an eye-opening film. So we're really excited to have it on campus, and hope that people come out and take part in it.
And this is a free event to both students, campus, community members, anybody?
Yeah. It's free and open to campus community as well as the community at large. The screening of the film was in the area in the fall. It was actually at several of the movie theaters, the public ones, but we were able to bring it to campus, which is really exciting, and provide it free of charge through funding that we've gotten through the Eating Awareness Committee to allow for students, faculty, staff, and the community to come and see this great film.
I had the pleasure of going and seeing it last fall, actually out in Ithaca, one of the movie theaters there, and I loved the main character. I thought she was incredible. I know she was she had a few children, and she was struggling with body image after that. But it was incredible to see. There was a lot of mothers and daughters there, but I really thought it could be a film for anyone. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think the film, because it is the main character is a woman, and she has a history of bodybuilding, which I think is fantastic. She's also a mother, so fitness and just general health has been a part of her life, but kind of going the spectrum of building muscle, which I think a lot of men and women can relate to, and trying to have the perfect body. But I definitely feel like anybody, male, female, old, young, families can benefit from seeing this, because it's not just eating disorders and body image disorders are not just a female issue. They are an everybody issue, and they do not discriminate. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter the age that you are. I've known young adolescents who've struggled. I've known older women and men who've struggled. I've known people of color, and it just doesn't discriminate. So we really want to send that message loud and clear that this film is for everybody, and we want you to come out and, let's talk about it. Let's work on the issues around body image and eating disorders together. And let's not stigmatize it, that it is something that is a real issue, and we need to be vocal about it.
Okay, great. So can you tell me just a little bit about what the Eating Awareness Committee does before we dive into what actually constitutes an eating disorder?
Sure. The Eating Awareness Committee is a cross-campus committee. We have many different departments represented. We have health educators from the student affairs side. We, of course, have counselors from the counseling center. We have educators from the health and wellness studies department, the recreation center. We have the dining services. We have athletics. And we also have many student representatives, Active Minds. We also have Fit University, who sits on our committee, both of which are SA charter groups. So we have a lot of student involvement as well as faculty and staff. And we meet regularly throughout the semesters. We meet 2 or 3 times a month, depending on how the calendar falls, and we talk about issues around eating disorders and body image disorders that are trending on campus. We look at the resources that we may need to be providing for students. We also look at the types of programmings and awareness campaigns we need to provide for students so that they can get into treatment or prevent the worsening of an eating disorder or a subclinical eating disorder or a body image issue. So we try programming, we also try awareness, and we also make sure that our services are in line with what the needs of our campus community are.
Great. So I figured we'd start with some eating disorder basics. So I don't know if you could just kind of tell me, I don't know if there's an official definition, but I guess in your perspective, what is an eating disorder?
Well, an eating disorder really is a psychological disorder. And there are many manifestations of psychological disorders, but eating disorders, interestingly, are the leading cause of death from a psychological disorder. So many people don't realize that eating disorders are that pathological in terms of the psychology, but they are. And a lot of times they are other underlying issues of anxiety or depression, OCD. There's a lot of other pathologies that couple with eating disorders a lot of times. A person may wax and wane in terms of the types of behaviors they have around eating. They may, restrict. They may binge. They may purge, or a combination of those. So there are classifiable eating disorders, and then there are ones that kind of fall out of the lines of a traditional diagnosable disorder. It doesn't mean that they're any less of an issue. As a matter of fact, they're sometimes more complicated to treat because they take on many faces and they change over time. So
we've got like anorexia nervosa.
Yes.
Can you give me the major
The big
ones?
Yeah. So the major ones are anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and also binge eating disorder. There are other ones such as pica, which are a little bit more not around traditional foods, but desires to eat non-food items.
Okay.
There's also other smaller ones that we would consider, I say smaller in the fact that there are fewer numbers of people who present with these disorders, such as purging disorder only, or there may be something along the night eating syndrome where a person wouldn't necessarily eat that abnormally during the day, but it might be something that there's a night activity going on that they're unaware of. They might be sleepwalking, etc. So they can take on lots of different faces. So we have that grouping oftentimes of those more obscure disorders as EDNOS, which is eating disorders not otherwise specified. So they are grouped into that classification for diagnosis purposes. So anorexia is really where there is a fear of becoming fat and a fear of gaining weight, which results in the person not eating food regularly and becoming emaciated and very malnourished. It's obvious a lot of times when a person is in the throes of anorexia because you can see them wasting away. It's very disheartening. It's very discouraging. And a lot of times a person who has bulimia nervosa, which is where there's a cycle of restriction and purging, they may not present as emaciated or malnourished. They may, to the eye, look very normal in terms of body weight. They may fluctuate in body weight up and down. But interestingly, bulimia is actually more deadly than anorexia because of the concerns with the electrolyte imbalance. If there's any type of purging behavior going on, it causes a person's heart to be under a lot more stress acutely, and they can go into an arrhythmia. Same thing can happen in anorexia, but if a person is anorexic and also purging, this is even more of a problem. So the purging behavior is very, very problematic. And it happens, like I said, in males and females of all ages. So it's not just something that we see in women. So I just want to make that very clear that if you see a friend or someone you know who's really struggling with these types of binge, purge, or restrictive behaviors, you want to just kind of pay attention and be concerned and show your concern a little bit there.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that in a little bit about what to do if you're worried somebody is suffering. Yeah. But two things that you said that raised questions for me were, first, you mentioned subclinical, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. And I also wanted to know excessive use of laxatives. Where would that fall? Is that bulimia, or how would you define that?
With regards to subclinical eating disorders, these would be behaviors where a person might be struggling for whatever reason, emotional health reasons, stress, anxiety. Maybe they have a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder, maybe they don't, but they start into behaviors where they are restricting their food for whatever reason. Maybe because they think it's a healthy thing, maybe they're trying to lose weight or dieting, which is an interesting thing. It's oftentimes a sad thing because our society promotes dieting as very healthy, and people go, "Oh, I'm on a diet. I'm going to be healthy." Well, dieting is not generally a very healthy practice. As a matter of fact, it's very stressful to our human physiology. It throws us out of balance. Mentally, when we start to restrict food, we know the pain that is associated mentally, emotionally, when we're deprived of food and nutrition. And we can will ourselves to not eat for a while, but a lot of times it's going to cycle into a loop, a pathology of control, and the brain, when it's not nourished with vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, healthy fats, even proteins, it is going to be less efficient at reasoning and rationalizing, and the brain becomes sick. So a person might not have a full diagnosed eating disorder, but may start to exhibit problems, physical, emotional problems that may roll into an actual diagnosable disorder. So we probably have a very large number, I say large number being a very ambiguous thing, but of people who have probably experienced a subclinical eating disorder. Maybe they've kind of gone into it and kind of gotten better. But sometimes people really down spiral, and end up with a significant problem. So disordered eating runs the spectrum from literally like missing a meal here and there to severe dieting to obsessive compulsive dieting control behaviors. So anyway, that's kind of the whole subclinical end of things.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then with the laxative use, a person may abuse laxatives or diuretics or other types of purging methods. So I would probably put that into a purging scenario where a person is trying to eliminate food or calories from their body or from their diet in some ways. So it can be problematic in terms of GI distress. A person might start to develop problems with regular bowels, electrolyte imbalance, and create a whole host of other problems that may then present chronically as IBS or other types of digestive disorders.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So in talking about eating disorders, do you think that there's any real cause or risk factors associated with them? And does it differ by type, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. There's a lot of research going on right now in regards to the causes of eating disorders. There are many different causes. We can't say, put our finger and say, well, this is going to cause an eating disorder in everybody, because we know that's not the case. So there's going to be a constellation of different factors that will present as challenges in a person's life. Certainly, we know that there are genetics that are kind of indicating to us that a family member or a history of eating disorders in families, we see that we're isolating those genes. And so we can be a little bit more vigilant in those individuals who have that genotype. We also know that there are different types of environmental factors that will trigger a person to develop an eating disorder. Certainly a family member who does have an eating disorder who has struggled is going to a lot of times be stressed by that and may learn things. So for example, if it's a parent, mother, father, or a caregiver, provider, that children growing up in the home are witnessing struggling with their body, whether it's negative self-talk or dissatisfaction or restrictive eating, dieting, or any type of pathology, that is going to be learned. And this is very difficult because then you have a sick parent or a person who's struggling, and then you have a child who's learning that exact behavior. So certainly that's part of it. We know that our early menses for women, sometimes early maturation, that can be a trigger because of teasing. We see the same thing in men and young boys. They may have a tendency to be maybe a little bit less fit, and they may be made fun of because the way that boys and girls have a tendency to tease can certainly affect the emotional side of things, which would prompt somebody maybe to try dieting or excessive exercising or trying to build muscle. And so teasing is a big one. Bullying is a big one. We know that aesthetic sports, anytime there is an individual who has more exposure of skin, so we think of like sports like swimming or wrestling or even track and field or volleyball. Sometimes dance is a big one too. If we are exposed in our body to a public display and it's a sport where we're in a weight class or we are in an aesthetic type sport where we're judged by the way we look, that certainly could prompt a person's trying to control the way their body looks. There are many other factors. Media certainly can play a role in that, the way that we learn to think about our bodies and maybe even learn to dislike or hate our bodies based on the images that are portrayed in our media today. We think about social media too, and the way that we oftentimes are editing our body image, our face, our complexion, whatever the case may be. And that promotes the unrealistic images that we are seeing and that we are trying to attain day to day. Yeah. So many factors that come into play. So we can't really say this was the cause. I know that some people have asked me about, well, I've heard that coaches who say things to their athletes or, parents who say things to their children about them being overweight or being out of shape is the cause. And, that might be one factor in a basketful, that would basically tip a person into a pathology. But there are many, many variables.
Okay. And so how does someone diagnose an eating disorder?
Yeah. Well, it's a psychological disorder, so it does need to be diagnosed through a professional psychologist, psychotherapist, and they will then look at a person's history. They'll look at a lot of the other potential anxiety disorders or depression or whatever else the person might be struggling with. And when they get a diagnosis, we have, because of the mental health laws that have come into play, been able to start to get reimbursable treatments for individuals with eating disorders. It's been a long, hard fight, I guess you could say, a long, hard fight. And it is still a problem to get reimbursable services for individuals with mental health issues, eating disorders being one of the ones that's very difficult. So from there, a person should really get into treatment, hopefully. Not always an easy diagnosis because a lot of times people don't want help, don't want to recover because they feel like the eating disorder is what's allowing them to be in control of all of the factors that are out of control in their life or the perceived out of control. And so it's sometimes very challenging to get a person even to get a diagnosis so that they can actually get the treatment that they need.
And when you say treatment, how does it manifest itself or what treatment options are available?
Well, what research is showing is that eating disorders are best treated from a multiple prong approach or a team approach where we have psychotherapists, psychiatrists, nutritionist, medical professionals, sometimes families, a lot of times families, coaches, exercise scientists involved in the whole treatment plan where the team approach is really coordinated together. So a lot of times what a patient will tell their mental health provider may be something completely different than they tell their healthcare providers. So it's very important for there to be coordinated services so we can understand what the needs of the patient are and make sure that we're all on the same page in that coordinated treatment. So there needs to be nutritional and physical sort of care first to stabilize the patient if it's a real severe eating disorder. So you want to make sure that they're okay physically, and then really start working on the the psychological aspects a little bit more in detail. And it can take years in treatment, but people can recover. So I think a lot of times people get so discouraged that, I'm trying to get better, I'm trying to heal, but it's just it's sometimes a hard fight again,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you could touch quickly on what the statistics are currently surrounding eating disorders.
The statistics are a hard thing. I would encourage anybody who's really interested in knowing more about the statistics to go to the National Eating Disorders sites. We could go to NEDA, which is a really great site. It has some of the more overarching statistics about the numbers of people who suffer and potentially some of the trends, but really from state to state or school to school, it's really difficult to track eating disorders. But NEDA definitely has a lot of those statistics on their website. So I'd encourage anybody to go out and look at the resources they have and read some of the facts that they have there. It's a great site.
And speaking of resources, what does Binghamton University or the committee that you're on offer to students or community members that are struggling with an eating disorder?
So the Eating Awareness Committee isn't really a treatment team by any means. We do have members on the committee who serve on eating disorder treatment teams. So some of the services that students, faculty, and staff could reach out to on campus for maybe an initial assessment of eating disorders, or if they have a friend that they're worried about and they want to go talk about what can I do to help a friend, which is a lot of times what students have questions about because they see somebody who's struggling and they don't know what to do. So either way, these are the resources that you would want to touch base with. So certainly the University Counseling Center, we have several specialists who deal with eating disorders in our counseling center, which is wonderful. A lot of the therapists over there do work with eating disorders, but we have a couple who are very specialized in that. We also have the Decker Health Center. We have nurses who are trained, and our medical doctor and our psychiatrist who are trained to help identify individuals who might come in presenting eating disorders, and they can also be monitored through our health services on campus. The dietitian through campus dining services, we have two of them who are very up to date with the nutritional requirements for eating disorders. They can be an initial resource to trying to establish a healthy diet for patients and students who might be struggling. And we also have, of course, individuals in campus recreation who could help answer questions about appropriate exercise. And then, of course, in health and wellness studies, we have a lot of courses that talk on nutrition and exercise. We also have a really great class called Stress Management, which is dealing with a lot of reframing of stress, which can help students of different eating disorders to really work on coping mechanisms that are healthy.
Sure, yeah. And is there any integrated or team approach in place here at Binghamton?
So there is, absolutely. We do have the professionals who meet on a regular basis. So like I said, our committee is not a treatment team, but we look at trends and needs of the campus overall. So when we need to refer off campus, we have community agencies that we work very closely with, and we can send students to get really advanced metabolic testing to see where they are physically, metabolically, to make sure that they are progressing with treatment. So the professionals in the counseling center, the health center, and the dietetics will work together in a confidential way to help students coordinate treatment plans. And it's very, like I said, private and confidential. So students can rest assured that they're, not being exposed in any way or being treated in an unfair way.
Yeah, I mean, we all face something. So
yeah, absolutely.
At some point, so it's nice to know that there's a treatment team here and in the community. So I figure before, we've got just a few minutes left. I didn't know if you wanted to give out the information again about the screening for Embrace.
Yes, thank you so much. So next week, starting on Sunday, February 26th, is National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, and we will be having a screening of the documentary film Embrace. And it's going to be on Monday, February 27th at 7 p.m. in Old Union Hall, sponsored by the Eating Awareness Committee. It's free and open to the public, and we hope that you will come out and once again just learn a little bit more about body image and how we can stand up to some of the pressures that our society presents to us, and basically kind of break down that stigma a little bit around the struggles we have around eating disorders and body image.
And I looked online if anybody wants to see us and they forget what we're saying.
Yeah.
I just plugged it. I Googled Binghamton University Embrace screening. Is there a more direct way to get there, or does that?
Well, we have an eating awareness page. So if you go to the Eating Awareness Committee, all of our programming will be up as we go through the spring semester. We also have an event coming up in March. It's called the Respect Rave. It's a blacklight dance party. It's March 22nd, and it's going to be all about loving and respecting your body, exercising it, and embracing the uniqueness that your body has.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get you back on to talk about that. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. That's about all the time that we have. But remember that next week marks National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. You can catch that screening of Embrace, a documentary about self-acceptance and body image. That's this coming Monday, 7 p.m., Old Union Hall, completely free. Yeah. Thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you, Emma. I really enjoyed my time today.
Great. This is your host, Emma Hunter, and I will talk to you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. for the Weekday Wellness Update here on WHRW.